So in this video, we're going to talk about medium-term rentals, or MTRs, for some shorthand references you'll probably see throughout the course. Now, typically a medium-term rental is between like 30 days and about 6 months. So it's greater than a short-term rental, but not as long as a long-term rental. I'd say the most common is like 30 days to about 3 months. And a lot of times it goes to like traveling nurses, corporate executives, people relocating. And after the COVID work from home boom, there's been a lot more of the digital nomads, which are usually like people that can work remotely. And then you go travel for a couple months in various cities as well. So we're seeing a lot more digital nomads as well who are able to work remotely, come spend a few months in a city. So medium-term rentals have really grown the last couple of years, and they can be absolutely a fantastic rental. Again, you gotta make sure they work in your local market, and like short-term rentals and other rentals, it really depends on what part of town you're in as well. If you want to rent to traveling nurses, you should probably be near a hospital, for example. But medium-term rentals are definitely something that you should put on your radar and look at, because a lot of times people will pivot away from a short-term rental due to how much work it takes. And a medium rental, a lot more people can self-manage that, because it might be 3 to 6 turns a year, meaning tenant turnovers, versus 3 to 6 a month or more than that. So on the deal spectrum, deal availability, I mean, these are pretty good. So it's a medium to high. You can go out there and, again, find deals relatively easily on the MLS and in the top 5-10% of good properties out there. At least for us locally here in Denver, we find the majority of these on the MLS. So your realtor should be able to help you out with that, no problem. Time. Like I said, they take less work than a short-term rental. Now, you're gonna have to spend some time learning about it and probably operating it as well. I have not seen a whole lot of property managers that specialize in medium-term rentals. In my experience, especially here in Denver, typically, long-term, property managers either stick to long-term or short-term. I'm starting to see a couple more pop up with medium-term rental property managers, but I've seen a lot fewer of those compared to a long-term or short-term renter property manager. So definitely research that and talk to your local team about that and see if there are local property managers for you. Skill, I would say, low to medium. You will have to go in there if you operate it yourself. You have to go in there, furnish it, get some supplies in there, provide all the basic necessities that people need to go in there and be able to stay for, a couple months at a time. I mean, just think about if you go stay somewhere and go work remotely for 2 months, what do you need? How do you want to set it up? Obviously, usually a really good desk and work from home station can be very attractive if you're focusing on these digital nomads. But I'd say there's a good amount of resources available on the internet, not as much as a long-term rentals or short-term rentals, but enough to where you can go out there and learn it with no major hurdles. Risk, I would put this on the low to medium because if you have a medium-term rental, you can usually have other options as well for a short-term rental or long-term rental. You usually have optionality on there as well. Network, you don't need an amazing network to go out there and find these deals or operate these deals. Again, really leveraging your agent and your lender. They can help you out with the vast majority of what you need and kind of get you connected with the right people and right resources. Capital. Now, if you're buying this as an investment property, you're going to need a good amount of capital. So, a higher amount of capital, a lot of times it's that 25% down payment. Plus, if you have to rehab or update the property, it usually needs to be a nicer update than just your standard long-term rental update, and you have to furnish it as well. Financing availability, lots of great financing available options out here as well. Pretty similar to what you get for a long-term and short-term rentals. So make sure you talk to your lender as well, because he or she can walk you through a lot of the details and help you understand what options you have available to you. All right, so let's jump over to Property Llama, and I'm going to go to the MTR, or medium-term rental, and open that in a new tab so we can do a deep dive. So again, same property, and I'm assuming someone's buying it today. So a $590,000 purchase price with a 25% down payment. And I put an estimate about $50,000 in repairs and rent ready costs. So more than a long-term rental, but less than a short-term rental. So it needs a nicer finish than a long-term rental, but not quite as nice as a short-term rental, and usually not quite as nice as furnishings. So altogether, maybe about $200,000 down. So a really good chunk of capital. Now underwriting over here, I won't do step-by-step underwriting on here. But you can see here for this property, we're estimating about $5,500 total a month in rent. Well, compare that to the long-term rental analysis. I think we're at like $4,100 a month in rent, so an extra $1,500 a month. But I'm going to have more expenses on here. You can see the property management fee is higher than a long-term rental, but less than a short-term rental. And here in Denver, we do have a couple medium-term rental property managers, so I put their cost in here as well. But should cash flow about $500 a month. So what's that mean in terms of property performance? Well, we're looking at about a 5.75% cap rate, an NOI of about $35,000, and about a 19% return on my money here. Now, what's interesting on here is I'm getting more rents, but because of the increased expenses, I'm only getting a slightly better overall return on my money than I am a long-term rental. And this is where playing around property law and different strategies comes in really handy. And I'm jumping back to the long-term rental right now just for a quick comparison. So you can see here I'm making about 20% of my money at $1,500 a month in cash flow. Now the medium-term rental, $6,000 a year in cash flow, but about 19%. Well, why is that different? Well, a big part of it too is because I'm having to outlay more cash on here. And so since I'm putting more money in there, that does affect how my returns are calculated. So again, neither good nor bad. It's just, numbers, and then you weigh in what you want to do. Now, if you come to this property and say, this is a medium-term rental, I can self-manage this. So you come into Property Llama, and I'm going to edit this property and take out this 20% property management fee. So you might say, hey, I can self-manage this because I've looked at it, not going to take a whole bunch of time. Again, 27-year-old Chris Lopez may self-manage it. 41-year-old Chris Lopez is not going to. But now my property performance goes way up, and I'm making way more cash flow, and my overall return is a lot, jump from 17% to 26%. Again, but you are now managing the property, so there's a trade-off for your time, and there is some dollar per hour and bandwidth per hour as well onto here, and that's something you have to determine, is that worth it based on your situation and the type of returns that you want. Now, a lot of clients that self-manage medium-term rentals, because they like it because it's kind of that sweet spot between not all the headache and hassle and constant communication and dealing with cleaners for a short-term rental, but way better cash flow a lot of times than a long-term rental. So I actually like this strategy a whole lot because I think that works for a lot of people where they can invest some time, some more time into it to self-manage and really increase their cash flow, but not the amount of time it would for a short-term rental. So again, that's the high level of the medium-term rental. So feel free to come in here and I'll share this link with you so you can view this property. But again, as you start working with your local team, underwrite, hey, does a medium-term rental work here in my market? Does it make sense? Again, depending on location, your market, it may or may not make sense. I know Denver pretty well, but I don't know your market, so I can't give you specifics on there. Other than medium-term rentals are growing in popularity. I see more and more of it on the internet. I talk to more investors around the country. So I definitely want to put it on your radar. I would encourage you to look at it because I have a lot of clients who are loving it and they're building some great wealth and cash flow by using the medium-term rental strategy.